Welcome back to Questing Beast. I'm Ben. Today we're taking a look at Barbarians of the Ruined Earth, which is a fantasy post-apocalyptic setting using the Black Hack. The Black Hack is a rule set for old school-ish D&D that focuses mostly on roll under mechanics and a usage die for tracking equipment. I've done a review of that in the past, and this is based on that rule set. Here's the back cover here. Before we get started, a quick shout out to some of our new patrons over on Patreon, including Sean Richer and Culkhead. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, guys. So what this includes is a whole bunch of interesting material for it's almost a Saturday morning cartoon-esque vibe going on here. We have a bit of Thundar the Barbarian, some Mad Max Fury Road, along with lots of material for you to actually use in your campaign. So we have weaponized animals, hirelings, stupendous science machines, we have mutations. There's lots of GM tools to be put to use here. This is created by Mike Evans, who's the same person who did the Hubris expansion for Dungeon Crawl Classics, which I reviewed in the past. And one of the big features of that book was the huge number of random tables for generating content for use in play. And it looks like this does continue that vibe. Right off the bat, we have the aesthetics and the layout of this are really nice. I think it really captures this comic book-like feel with this dot matrix background. It feels like an old comic book and these bright orange and yellow colors. I think it looks really nice. It stands out definitely from what you typically see in old school products. So the introduction is, over 2,000 years ago, the world was torn asunder when an alien planet crashed into our moon, utterly shattering it. Destruction rained down from the sky, nearly annihilating all life on Earth. Humanity persevered, but the Earth was forever changed as alien matter and genetic material mixed with our own, and a new, bizarre world rose from the ashes of the old. A world of depravity, stupendous science, and nefarious sorcery. So this is Barbarians of the Ruined Earth. The beginning of the book is a summary of the mechanics. So if you don't actually own the Black Hack, which is the rules this is based on, then you can read this and get up to speed very quickly. Like I said, it is a D20 roll under system. So you have your 6 basic stats. You're rolling under to succeed. Armor does reduction, or damage reduction, rather than being an armor class that you're trying to hit. So in some ways, I think it's a little bit more intuitive than what you typically see in D&D. You have your 8 basic classes here, which are Barbarian, Scavenger, Death Priest, and Urchin. These are the human classes. And the non-human classes, Beastman, Sorcerer, Robot, and Vec, which is a Raptor folk. Saves are all done with roll under, so you're rolling under one of your 6 attributes in order to avoid things. Initiative is mostly group initiative. You're typically going before or after the enemies. And the amount of damage you do is usually based on your class rather than on your weapon, just to keep things as streamlined as possible. And the enemy damage is typically based on their hit dice, which is a measure of just enemy strength in general. When you're dead or dying, you roll on this table to see how much, if you're actually dead or if you're just knocked out or something similar. We have some rules for mooks, hordes. We have advantage and disadvantage from 5th edition thrown in there, which is pretty typical. We have some sample traps here at the beginning. Some rules for encumbrance, which uses slot-based encumbrance, which is my favorite. I think it's just really easy, really straightforward to use. And just your typical old school rules. And we start getting into the classes right here. Now, right off the bat, what I love is that we have the art by, I believe it's Matthew Adams, who, let's see if we get to the actual artist credits here, who I've seen do work in the past, but really not that much. There we go, it's all the way at the beginning. So pictures are Matthew Adams, yes indeed. And I've also seen Kelvin Green's work before, and J.V. West is one of my favorites as well. But Matthew Adams stuff is just great. It really captures this cartoony, slightly goofy, but extremely evocative feel. And he does a picture for each of the 8 classes, so it's great to see his work again. The Barbarians' main features are they're just much better at attacking. So they gain extra attacks. They can automatically deflect something once per combat. They have a battle shout, which allows their strength or dexterity. Their next test to be considered an automatic success. And a loincloth warrior. When you're wearing just a loincloth and badass bracers or a leather bikini, then you get special armor bonuses. It can be counted as medium or heavy armor, which is pretty hilarious and also very thematic. We also have some random tables down here just to increase your variety of your starting barbarians. You got some trinkets and some life events. And all of our classes here are going to have similar features. Beastman, again, great illustration. Some stuff like they're extra strong or even impossibly strong. And they have a thick hide. Some trinkets and life events. For example, they perhaps fought off slavers who were attempting to take your sister, or they were down by the river when a water weird attacked you. For some reason, the creature stopped its assault and let you live. So you have a little bit of something that you can build off of when creating your character. We have a Scavenger, who is kind of like a thief character. They're agile, they're very sneaky, they have a keen eye so they can loot through junk piles and find stuff more quickly, and they're good at fixing up technology. We have the Robot. Robot has more detailed mechanics, just because being a machine, there's going to be stuff that's special about them. They can remove bits and pieces from deactivated robots they come across and add them onto themselves and alter their own abilities that way. You can pick different types of robots to start as, including a combat robot, a medical robot, tracker robot, or a diplomatic robot. The Death Priest has some miracles that they can work. Let's see, I believe there are 18 different miracles that are possible. And as you level up, you can choose new miracles to gain. You have a maximum of 6 miracles at 9th level. So you can do stuff like knowledge of the past. You can channel spirits to gain advantage on intelligence tests. You have advantage on tests against diseases and mind controlling effects. They're a little bit like a cleric. We have the Urchin, which is a little bit like the halfling analog. You're very small, you can fit into small places. People often underestimate you. So when you're making your very first attack, you can get advantage on that. There are 6 different types of urchins. You can be from the swamp, the desert, sewer, urban, forest, or badlands, and each of those comes with some special ability that goes along with it. If you grow up and become an adult urchin, then you have 1 or 2 extra things as well. For example, dirty fighting and a sleek frame. Raptor folk are I suppose a kind of beast man, but they're distinct in that they're highly intelligent, anthropomorphic raptors that are obsessed with stupendous science and ancient Earth technology. So they're able to see in low light. They have thick hides and are traded as having 1 armor point, basically. The claws are razor sharp, and so they can attack even when they're not holding weapons. If an advanced technology contraption has a usage die and finally runs out of juice, the Vec can coax a little more back into it, returning the usage die to D4. This can be done once per hour. And lastly, we have the Sorcerer, which is the most elaborate character class that you can be here. It's definitely the wizard equivalent. Special features including being able to detect magic, magically resistant. You have a staff that can disappear and reappear in your hand. But of course, the big deal is all of your spells, which are a little bit later on here. We have a lot of random tables here just to make you even weirder because sorcerers are, well, they're not really human. They're born of humans, but when they're born, it's clear that there's something very wrong with them. They have magic imbued into them, and they are really a different kind of being. So you could have obsidian colored skin, your hair could be alabaster, your eye color could be static. Something very strange going on there. There are 10 schools of magic that you can harness to cast spells. These allow you to manipulate, harm, or hinder their foes. Basically, when you start out, every level, a sorcerer chooses a new spell from a school they already know. Each school contains 3 spells. Starting at first level, you begin play knowing 4 schools and 1 spell from each. And so as you grow up, as you level up, you can continue to learn spells from schools you already know, but you can also start branching out into other schools. This makes your wizard or your sorcerer fairly thematic, but you also have a good amount of variety. So these could be arcane, blight, control spells, force, illusion, movement, protection, and restoration, stupendous science, and transformation. What I do like about this is that most of the spells are, I guess, the same level, because any of them can be chosen at the beginning of the game. As you level up, you just get more variety in terms of what you're able to do. Getting to equipment, we start running into our random tables, which is pretty typical for what I've seen from Mike Evans. So we have weapon generators. You don't just have weapons, you can roll on a bunch of tables and get something much weirder, which I suppose is appropriate for this very gonzo post-apocalyptic setting. So your damage type could be anything from explosive to heat. You could have weird properties like a singularity or mind control attached to it. You even roll for generating new types of armor. You have some standard equipment here. Some animal companions you can pick up. And some weaponized animals. So you have little animals that you can throw at your enemies and they do something strange. For example, the sleeping iguana gun. This iguana rests on a stick that is encased in a bottle-shaped glass that is strapped to a gun-like object. The iguana's tail is tied to a string that connects to the gun's trigger. When the trigger is squeezed, the iguana opens its mouth and belches a small puff of smoke that fills a 5-foot radius. Targets in the area must make a constitution save if player characters, or fall unconscious for 1d2 hours. And we have a few vehicles and chassis that you can kind of slap together to make your own weird weapon, or your own weird vehicle. The state of the ruined earth, so we're just getting a little bit into the background here. It is fairly loose, very easy to adapt, but it assumes a very colorful, very gonzo environment. We have excuses for basically anything that you want to throw in here. So the alien world that crashed into the moon means that any sort of weird alien technology is possible. You also have rifts in space-time that have opened up left and right, which allow you to port in things from basically any universe that you feel is appropriate. So there's a little bit of rifts going on here. Stupendous science. They're powerful gadgets, experiments, or knowledge most often used by sorcerers to bolster their powers, armies, or dominate their foes and subjects. Many stupendous science devices have been created by combining old world and alien technology and fused with a sorcerer's power and devious imagination. A sorcerer that has constructed a devastation machine, a sleek metal and deadly mobile fortress, is indeed a powerful being. So we have lots of examples of weird technology, or essentially magic items, that you can hand out. So the moon sword, the staff of cancellation, the ray gun of shrinking, and so on. We have some mutations. Because you're going to assume that there's weird magical or radioactive energy fields left and right that players are going to be mutated by. And I think there is 60 of these, so quite a lot of variety when it comes to mutations. And some cyberware, because why not? Let's throw some cyberware in there too. We get into the GM tools section now, which is great. This is the kind of section that most games could use, but which is often left out of books. So we have things like adventure generators, persons, actions, locations, objects, second persons, and twists. You roll on all these tables, you combine them together, and you have a mix of things that you can combine to make an adventure. So for example, an occultist, and you need to kidnap at a floating landmass, and then object is involved, the Staff of Vengeance. There's a second person there, which could be a witch, and the twist is that the object is not what it is believed to be. So with those 6 things, you can quickly tie them together and come up with something. And you can also bring the crazy if you want something really weird. So maybe a chasm leading to an underground city of mole men, they were at war with bat creatures, just to throw in some extra chaos. We have an NPC generator here. That adds on professions and whatever obsession they have. Obsessions is good because it gives them a motivation. It's not just a quirk. It kind of determines how they're going to act. So you're going to have things to build off of when you're running that NPC. We have some villages and the table and the troubles that are connected to them. So we have D12 villages, D12 troubles. Punishments of the ruined earth. You know, you're going to be strapped to that wheel of pain at some point. Some concoctions, things you can eat and drink, book generators, weird religion tables. So perhaps the way of the grill. These road warriors worship fast cars, gasoline, and the need for speed. This group rides through the wasteland, finding ancient cars and fixing them into working condition. Their leader, Sparkplug, is half machine after a bad accident years ago. So got a little Mad Max in there. Interesting location generator. This is a D100 table because if you're going to be doing any sort of open world exploration campaign, which I think this is mostly geared towards rather than dungeon crawling, although you could have a dungeon if you wanted to, you're going to need to have lots of locations. So a marsh filled with giant insects, putrid smelling water, and a small community of frogmen, or perhaps a group of gnarled trees with blackened bark. The trees have the faces of humans. You're going to have plenty of material to throw at your players. We've got random encounters you can use and some weird weather. which again makes sense if this is more for an open world campaign. We have a bestiary or bestiary. How many of these do we get? I think it's 50 something. No, 46 adversaries. So quite a large variety of monster types to use. Definitely enough inspiration for you to start working on your own. Anything from alien vampires to animated trash men, ant-men queens, the apeoids, car golems, car serpents, cultists, and so on. And all of them, or virtually all of them, have some pretty great illustrations. So we have some Sam Amelli art right here. I recognize that anywhere. Giant beetles and ghosts and lizards and mantis. That's a great illustration. I really like that one. That is a big mantis. The horrible bear monster, giant vampire bats, hybrid animals, and a way to generate your own hybrid animals. Killer clowns, lightning man, the mummy, mutants, and so on and so forth. You won't run out of new monsters to throw at your players anytime soon. The telepath, guys with TVs for heads, vulture folk. And near the end, we get the Western Lands, which is a very short rundown of an actual section of land. I believe this is supposed to be Southern California, but with some Mad Max twists. And at each of these locations, let me see how many there are. There's about 13 of them. Each of them gets a short write-up with 3 bullet points. So it's enough to get you going, but you will have to flesh this out a bit if you're really going to run it as a complete setting. And we have a location, Nakatomi Plaza, which is a riff off of Nakatomi Plaza from Die Hard. And we have the ways that you can roll up the different blocks. So I think there's a little bit of Judge Dredd in here too, where you're kind of crawling up a skyscraper, dealing with all of the things there. There's different gangs on each level. There's different traps. There's different problems you're going to have to deal with as you try and make your way up. We have an Appendix N at the back, including stuff like Thunder the Barbarian, the Black Hack, the Conan the Barbarian books, naturally. He-Man, Mad Max, the Dying Earth series by Jack Vance, John Carter, and Wizards. All of those things are kind of pulled into here. We have the Kickstarter backers at the very back, and we have some of the uncolored illustrations in black and white, which is really great because you really get a sense of the inking work that went into these. I believe this is the cover of the special edition, which is also available on DriveThruRPG. As usual, I will put links to all of these things in the description down below, where you can pick it up for yourself. And we have our character sheet at the back. Room for your character portrait right up there, I think. And that's it for this book, Barbarians of the Ruined Earth. So that's it for this review. Check out it down in the description below if you'd like to get yourself a copy. This is all print on demand, but it is quite sturdy. It's actually quite nice for a print on demand book. I think POD works a little bit better for soft cover than hardcover. And the colors in this are quite vibrant, and it's really fun to read and hold and to just look through the illustrations. So yeah, that's it for today, everybody. And thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.